Over the past few days, I have been obsessed with the brand new Netflix show Adolescence, and since it's now been out for a few days, I thought let's rank every single episode. Now, this show is just a masterpiece. If you want to see a full video about me going into detail as to why it's a masterpiece, there'll be a link down below in the description, or you can go and click the card somewhere up there. But regardless, that means every single episode I think deserves S tier if we were going to do this on a tier list. But today, we're going to see which out of these incredible 4 episodes might just top over into the best one. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to split the episodes into different categories, rank them in these categories, and then find out which is the best one at the end. So let's start off with the first category, which is acting. The acting in this show is just phenomenal. Owen Cooper, the guy who plays Jamie, considering he's a little boy who'd never done acting beforehand, the fact that he was this amazing for his first time ever acting on a massive show like this is just amazing. So let's start with episode 1. The acting is incredible. We get the sense that this family is really scared. The acting of the police and the doctors and the investigators just seems so natural and so driven forward. Owen's acting for the character of Jamie is just brilliant. When the dad asks him if he did it and Jamie has to just lie, you can sort of tell that he's lying, but also sort of tell that he's not, and you sort of get Jamie's fear throughout the entire episode, with Jamie upholding that information. And then when he eventually does tell his dad, and we get to see the shock reveal after we see the video of Jamie stabbing Katie, the reveal and the heartbreak that we see on the dad's face is just brilliant. The acting is absolutely amazing. Episode 2 is of course the episode in the school with a lot of child actors, and to be fair, it is pretty good, the acting. I will say they managed to get some really great child actors for this show, which can be really hard because a lot of the times child actors don't get it as well as the adult actors, but I didn't see a massive difference between them. Some of them are better than others, but I will say it's still very impressive, and you could also see the hurt and the realizations and griefs on lots of these kid actors, but also on actors like the ones playing the detectives. Episode 3, however, I think was incredible for acting. It was more like watching a theatre show rather than watching a TV show, because of course it was all just basically one 50-minute long episode inside one single room, and it is intense. It's just a 50-minute long duologue between the psychologist and Jamie, and both of these actors are incredible. This shows how great Owen Cooper is, considering how young he is, considering he's never done acting before. The fact that he can memorize all these lines and be so intense, get the emotional cues perfectly, when to be manipulating, when to slow down, when to snap out and get really angry, and seeing the psychologist being able to withhold her emotions, because you can tell she's really trying, and then it all just breaks at the end. It's absolutely incredible. I absolutely love it. And episode 4 has just the slow breakdown of everyone slowly getting more and more depressed, and the emotional scenes at the end with the 2 parents, and when the dad ends up going into Jamie's room and just cries, and the car journey back, and the intense moments. The acting is amazing. It makes you feel so invested. But I think the winner for this acting category is definitely going to be episode 3. I just think the 50-minute duologue between the 2 of them was just too perfect. The next category is realism. One of the strongest points of Adolescence is that it feels real. It feels like you are not watching a TV show, you are watching real life played out in front of you. Let's start with episode 1. It felt like you were there being tested with Jamie. It felt like you were one of the family members who didn't really know what was going on. You felt all of the chaos of this police station. So I think it was really good at feeling real. Episode 2 was a bit too worryingly real for me, especially growing up in Britain and going to a British high school. I know exactly what it is like experiencing a British school, and they did it so perfectly. I mean, the smell of the place, kids running out of control, walking past and seeing videos playing, walking past and hearing teachers shouting, the chaos of a random fire alarm going off, the fights that start happening, the teachers worrying about the school's reputation and hearing from the parents. Like, it's just so utterly realistic, and it felt like I was back at school, and I didn't like that, so it was really good for that. Episode 3, you could see the realism of this really troubled kid and seeing how someone would want to help them. And then episode 4, it captures British family lifestyle a bit too well. Just the awkward moments in the morning, whether they're going to get food or not, the interaction with the neighbours, like being nosy and them waving hi to the neighbours but then slagging them off behind the door as soon as the door's closed, the drama drive to the shop and just the conversations that you'd have in the car, the retail workers, all of that sort of stuff. It's just really, really good at feeling real. But I do think episode 2 has to win this one because I felt like I was back in school and that terrified me. So episode 2 is going to win this one. Next category we've got is intensity. This show is so good because of how intense it is. You feel like you are living through these truthful moments, and I felt very intense throughout watching all of it, considering I watched every episode back to back for the first time. Let's start with episode 1. You are straight into the action. It is hectic. You feel like you have just woken up like the family did, and suddenly there are police barging on your door. There is no time to breathe. There's no time to process. You are just as lost as the parents, and I think it creates the atmosphere of how much everything turns a 180 from everything being normal to suddenly everything being chaotic so well. Episode 2, everything's going wrong at the school, and it's like we said before, it's like being in real school, so it creates that intensity. Episode 3 has a different type of intensity. It's slow, it's manipulative, it's creepy and uncomfortable, and yeah, it's really good at it. In episode 4, I think the most intense part is the car journey back from the shop to the house, where we've just had the dad's outburst where he's thrown the paint all over, he's just attacked a kid in the field, and then they're driving home and it's just dead awkward silence. And I know exactly that feeling of where something bad has happened in the family and you just can't talk, and if anyone talks it's just gonna be really awkward, and then it's interrupted by Jamie talking about how he's gonna plead guilty to the murder. It's so intense. But I do think episode 1 has to win for this one because of how you just get thrown into the intensity without any time to breathe. So episode 1's gonna win this one. The next category is the emotional impact. The reason why we're all talking about this TV show so much is because of how hard-hitting it was, and each episode does this really, really well. Episode 1, we've of course talked about the sudden change in everyone's lives. You feel like you've been emotionally hit by the trauma of what on earth has just happened and not having really any time to process that. Episode 2 is really hard-hitting because we get to start to see how Katie's death is impacting the entire town. We of course see that wonderful drone shot making it feel like this is affecting everyone. We see the dad having to put flowers down for the girl who his son killed. We see all of these kids reacting in so many different ways and all these teachers reacting in so many different ways. Some are crying, some are running off, some are getting angry, some are in denial that it happened. There's just so much going on. Episode 3, I think, is really good for emotional impact because it shows us Jamie's emotional impact. We get to see his outbursts of anger, we get to see him questioning everything, and then the psychologist holding everything in and then breaking at the end after keeping it all together is just incredible. Such a great performance. Episode 4, like we've discussed, it is just the slow unraveling of everything is fine to then everything is not fine. We get to see them going from this happy state of being in a birthday to slowly little minor things ticking them off to eventually an absolute destruction of everything. Like the dad slowly on his birthday trying to stay positive, to then seeing the paint on his car, to then the neighbors getting annoyed at him, to then seeing the kids on the bikes, to then the retail worker talking to him about Jamie, to then him having his outburst with the paint, to then Jamie revealing that he's going to plead guilty for the murder, to then him questioning whether he is a good father or not, to the mum and the sister also questioning that as well, their emotional breakdown, everyone crying, and then when the dad finally goes back into Jamie's room and just looks around and realizes my son's gone forever, and he holds the teddy, he kisses it, and we just get to see that shot of him crying and then leaving the room, and the room is empty alone. That is so emotionally hard hitting. I have to say episode 4 definitely wins that one, and it's gonna end on a really sad note, so episode 4 wins that one. Which means we've got the final category, so whichever one this one wins will be classed as the best episode, in my opinion, of Adolescence. And this final category is the message. The best part of this show, and the reason why this show was created, is because it wants to highlight a big message on knife crime in the UK between young people, and how we can help as a society bring knife crime back down. Whether that is young people, social media, parenting, teachers, all sorts of things. It looks at all ranges of life. So which episode deals with that message the best? Episode 1 is definitely all about denial. It's denying that anything bad has happened. You know, the parents are like saying to the police, you know, nothing bad happened. Jamie is constantly lying about it. The lawyer is saying, just say no comment, like everything's fine. And then when we get the reveal that actually from the CCTV footage, Jamie did kill Katie, it sort of just highlights that message of, wow, we never really know what is going on with our young people. Maybe we should be focusing more in that. Episode 2, we look at how maybe it's the way these kids have been brought up and the atmosphere and the environments, the cyberbullying, the lack of care in school, the bullying, all this sort of stuff could lead to someone like Jamie, who's a normal kid, ending up just doing this awful crime. Episode 3, I think, is really good with this message moment because we get to see Jamie's perspective and we get to see just how troubled this kid is.
Did I scare you when I shouted? Could you tell me what these emojis are? How embarrassing is that? Getting scared of a 13-year-old.
I think the most hard-hitting moments, arguably of any point of the series, is when Jamie is asking the psychologist, am I a good person?
Do you like me? Don't you even like me a bit?
And the psychologist just can't respond, and you get to see Jamie freaking out because he really wants this psychologist person, he really wants someone in his life to actually agree that he is a good person, that he didn't mean to do this. And then the psychologist just has to remind him that even if Jamie feels bad now, the fact of the matter is, and the main message of this show, is that Katie is dead and we can't change that. There is no way of going back. And I think that's such a really hard-hitting message to go at.
I was here as a professional.
And I love the bit with the psychologist where she really wants to try and help Jamie. She goes in wanting and hoping that Jamie is a good person and it's all just been a misunderstanding. And I think the sandwich metaphor shows this perfectly because she goes in with a sandwich at the beginning, offering it to Jamie, offering it all to him, thinking that she could change him. And then at the end, she can't even look at the sandwich. She can't even hold it. When she breaks after she's held it all in, she realizes she can't help this unfortunately sick, insecure child. And that might be the main message of this show. Sometimes you can't help these people and we've got to do everything in our power to prevent them from getting to that stage. And episode 4, it's a whole question of, is it the parents' fault? Is it the sister's fault? Is it the family's fault? And I think it really highlights that this can happen to anyone because at the end of the day, they are just a normal family. They're not an abusive family. They're not a rich family. Jamie lives in this normal house with normal teenage boy stuff, with computers, with social media, with stars on his wall. And yet he still turned into that killer. And I think that's a really hard-hitting message. And the idea being that once he's done that, he's never going to return and you're never going to bring Katie back. I think every episode deals with the message so perfectly, but I do think I'm going to have to give it to episode 3, just because I think the sandwich metaphor is just brilliant. And seeing Jamie really pleading for help and no one coming for him, it really holds in that message. So for that reason, I'm going to say episode 3 is the best episode of Adolescence. Do you agree with me or not? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And as always, we've been here at Gate of Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.
But every little now and then it creeps on back.